goal is to just like make sure that you are finding the programs that you're interested in. You're set up on the right path for success, and then just helping you like achieve different like milestones and application requirements along the way. Okay, so that's kind of what my role is. Want to go?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Ashley. I work in the Student and Family Connections office on our First to Go program. And my role is working with first gen students and their families, sort of to make sure that they have all the support that they need while they're at UCCS and potentially after they leave UCCS and definitely before they come to UCCS. So if you're a first gen student, yeah, come hang out, SFC Main Hall 324. And if you don't know what first gen means, it means that you're the first in your family to complete a 4-year degree. So that's a bachelor's degree. And that means like not your parents didn't complete a 4-year degree, but it's okay if your sister, your cousin, your aunt, uncle did, just like between your parents and yourself, you're the first. And then Catherine.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Career Center. I'm Catherine Barrios, pronouns she, her, and I am a career coach here. And I'm happy to assist you in your journey to your next step, whether that's graduate school, whether that's industry, careers. We're happy to help you explore, do research, be as informed as possible about this big decision. It's a big investment for you, but it's an important one, right? So just letting you know, we do have one-on-one advising available where we can work and meet with you to talk about your individual like questions, also working through a lot of the application process with you. So we do collaborate with all of these offices to make sure that you have all of the resources you need. So if you're wanting another place to hang out, this is another place to do that. Thanks. Jen?
Hi, everyone. I'm Jennifer Poe. I'm the program director for research, and I'm the director of the Center for Student Research. So that's kind of the fourth office here. Our office does a lot to help support students and faculty in collaborating on original research and scholarly work together. So I'm available to help you look into what faculty are researching, and help you make those first connections with faculty if you're interested in working within the lab or in some scholarly capacity outside of the classroom. We also have a whole team of graduate students who act as aspirational peer mentors. So if you are really interested in grad school, we have them from several different departments on campus. You can kind of pick their brain about why did they choose this program, or what kind of went into their thought process about making this really big decision. So you can set up appointments virtual or in person, just to chat with them. And we actually have one of those grad peer mentors, and we'll be joined by several others for the second half of this for our panel. But I will actually Colleen will introduce yourself.
Yeah. I'll stand up because it's what everyone else has done. I am one of those aspirational grad peer mentors. I am a doctoral candidate at here at University of Colorado. I'm so used to explaining this to like outside people. But I am here to talk a little bit about the unwritten curriculum. I am a first-gen student, and so I've decided to go all the way for a PhD as the first person in my household. But there is a lot of unwritten stuff about grad school that I think is really important to try and have it identified. I've done my best that I can, but there's also specifics for everything else. And I'm also one of the grad peer mentors. So if you have more questions and want to meet with myself, I'm also available for that as well.
You want to introduce yourself now, Carrie? Okay, sure.
So I'm Kiri. I am a biochemistry master's student here. I'm finishing up my first year of my master's degree, and yeah, I'm one of the graduate peer mentors here that you can meet with and talk about, undergraduate research, because I did my undergraduate here at UCCS and just continued straight to grad school. So I have experience with that and how to just continue on, or just how to start in graduate research if you're looking at more of the science type majors, stuff like that. So
thank you.
Great. Okay. So let me explain to you what the packet is that you have first, and then the note card. So the packet follows along the presentation ish. So there's some resources on there, front and back. And then the second page, the second and third page are not the Center for Student Research. And that last page is about graduate peer mentor programs. So if you're interested in that, you can talk to Jen afterwards or talk to one of these two ladies. And then also there's a roadmap so that Destination Grad School is a great start as well. So Catherine and I kind of combined our resources for this presentation. So they match up pretty similarly. A few differences I think on there, but they're great information on both. Okay. So if you have any questions along the way, there are those note cards that we gave you guys. You can write questions on there that you maybe want to ask the panelists, or if you want to like submit a question anonymously, you can, give those to us. If something comes up, like during the presentation, if you want to stop me, that's fine and ask questions, or if you want to write them down, that's fine too. Okay, I'm good with either. So, okay. So before we get started, how many of you are freshmen? Anybody? Okay, awesome. You're in a great spot. I'm glad that you're here. Sophomores? Okay. You're in a good spot too. Freshmen and sophomores, you're like ahead of the game. That's great. Okay. Juniors and seniors? Yeah, okay. How many of you are thinking about going to like a medical school, PT, dentistry, anything at school? Anybody? Okay, I just wanted to ask because I like to add that stuff in if you need to. So we're good there. And if you do think if you're like, that's an option for me, just you can come talk to me afterwards. That's something I can look about that, and I'm sure Catherine does too. Okay, so we'll go ahead and get started. We're gonna try to make this interactive and fun, okay? Because I know it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon on a Thursday. So we are gonna make this fun. If I can get this to work. Yes.
You need to get from scratch.
Yes. Okay, so does anybody want, okay, don't look at that. Don't look at that. I do this every time. Okay, how many of you have an idea of what graduate school is? Okay, I'm not gonna ask if anyone is like clueless because there might be someone in here, and I'll be honest, I was clueless. So the main goal of this presentation is to give you some ideas, like to give you a general overview of grad school and kind of how to start your roadmap or journey to figuring out if graduate school is an option for you, if it's something that you want to do, if your career goals align with that. So we're going to go over a lot of stuff. So graduate school, just a basic overview or kind of general definition of that. So this is after you complete your bachelor's degree right now. So you'll complete your 4-year degree, and then you move on to a master's degree or PhD. Maybe med school, law school, Okay. So it's a more of a concentrated area of study. Okay. So right now, how many of you are in gen ed classes right now? Gen eds, like, is that what they call it?
Like core
Classes, like
lower division.
yeah, like lower division classes. Anybody? You freshmen, you sophomores, you guys might need some.
Like intro?
Yeah, like intro classes, like classes that might not relate to your major. Is anybody in any of those? Like, I don't know.
Like we all had to take like bio or.
Yeah, like
something with
English,
science
like that sort
or
of
something
stuff.
English, yeah.
Yeah. So you have throughout in your curriculum right now, you probably have, or you probably have already completed some of those. Maybe I should have said that.
Requirements.
Okay, requirements, yeah. So you've already completed some of those requirements of like English, you probably have to take a math, social science. And so those are very broad, right? So those cover a lot of different things. Graduate school is going to be one specific topic. Okay, so for example, like you all are in or you're biochem.
Biochem.
Okay, so I'm gonna use psychology. Okay, so psychology. So it's a more specified. So instead of studying, I mean, she probably is doing like some like research and stats and things like that, but probably not like you're not taking like a physics science class.
That is correct.
That she has to do this. Okay, so that makes sense, kind of the contrast of what that is. Okay. They're usually gonna in graduate school, like your program, depending on your program, usually it's an additional like 30 to like 40 to 45 hours of additional coursework that you're doing. So every program is different. And that's gonna involve doctoral students gonna be like a lot more, like 60. That's even after your master's degree. So, but a lot of times you'll have to do a thesis or dissertation. So is anybody in like are we anybody graduating in May? Okay. Any class that's like required to do like a capstone paper or like thesis or something like that? Okay. So you're probably gonna have to do one of those. Or some type of like culminating project at the end of your master's program to show that you have mastered content in one subject area. Okay. So what do you guys have to do?
For capstone.
Yeah, for capstone.
For biochemistry, we had a capstone that was closed for chemistry students as well. And we all had to come up with our own like research project that has not really been done before.
Okay.
And then we had to like give a proposal and
Right.
write a whole paper.
Yep. So it's culminating on what she's gonna be doing the whole part of the time. That's what you did in your undergrad. Okay.
That was
Yes.
capstone.
Yep. So how many of you, so I did with that, smaller class sizes, what's your biggest class right now? Does anyone have like 50 plus? Okay. What about like, so I would say probably max 25, maybe 15, maybe. So smaller class sizes, because you're gonna be more discussing the content in a more detailed way. And then sometimes they also require an internship or practicum. So just putting what you're learning into practice. Okay. So does that make sense about kind of what graduate school is? Between like 30, 45 hours of additional work, concentrated study. Okay. Okay. So if you're here, you might not know where to even start or like what to even like start thinking about. So we have 4 easy steps for you. So think, research and explore, prepare and update, and then the last one is apply. So we're gonna go through those. I'm gonna try to be cognizant of my time as well. What time do I have until?
How about give a second?
Right now? Okay.
20.
Okay, got it. Okay. So we'll start with think. Okay, so the first thing is just thinking about, and I know this seems like super simple, and you're probably like, I can't believe I attended a workshop for her to tell me to think. But you did. So, and I'm gonna tell you to do that. So the first thing is to think, okay? And I say that because graduate school is a huge investment. It's an investment in your money, your time, like your personal life is gonna like change when you're in graduate school. So here's some things that I suggest thinking about during this first step. Okay, so what are your personal goals? What do you aspire to do with your life? This could also combine with your career goals. So if you have a career in mind that you're like, I definitely want to be a police officer, and you're like, okay, now I'm going to go through, I need to figure out, okay, does that even require a master's degree? Do I even need to do a master's degree? Maybe you want to be a lawyer. So you're like, okay, now I know I have to go to law school. Okay. So thinking about your personal goals and your career goals and see if those align and that if they align with graduate school. Because you don't, and I'm just going to be honest, you don't want to like waste your time and money, right? And I'm supposed to tell you to go to grad school. So, and I'm telling you that. So, just something to think about. Think about too, like I always tell students, think about the time where you are in your life at this point in time. So, is now a good time? Right out of undergrad, is that a good time? Would it be better for you to wait a year and then apply? Because it's all going to be like if you have a family, if you're like working, does your career at this time like allow you to be in grad school and things like that? So just making sure that it's attainable for you right now is really important. And then the big thing is career, which we'll talk about that a little bit more throughout the presentation. Okay, step 2 is researching. So what are some things that we might think we should research when we're thinking about grad school? Might want to throw some stuff at me? Yes. Yes, perfect. Yep, we're gonna talk about that. Anybody else? Yes, perfect. Career, yep. Anybody else? Location, yep. What about like cost? Funding, yep. Okay. Yeah. Right? Okay. So here are some easy steps, and these are on that worksheet on the front, or not the worksheet, just the flyer. So these are on the front. So the kind of so within our 4 steps, here are 6 in number 2. So I usually say, so number 1, research your desired career. That's something that the Career Center can help you with. So even if you are like, I don't know, I have a field in mind of like, I know I want to do something in public administration, or I want to work in the community. Okay, so then if you want to like maybe try to narrow it down to saying like, okay, like I want to work in like local government. Okay, so then now we're looking at jobs in local government and kind of seeing like what what education is required for those types of jobs. Okay, so does somebody want to like say what they want to do? Who said that? Okay. OT. All right. So we don't have that program here. I don't think you were here when I said the program. We might not have it here. We may have it here. So it's kind of deciding where, like what you need to do. Okay. So what's your name?
Nakia.
Nakia. Okay. So Nakia, probably right now, hopefully is starting to look at occupational. She knows that's what she wants to do. And she probably has it narrowed down to, I know that I'm going to need an advanced degree in order to be an occupational therapist. Okay, so some careers require licensures that you have to, and that those require a master's degree. So really just thinking about your career is the first step. Number 2 is just doing like a Google search for graduate schools, right? So Nakia may say like OT schools in Colorado or OT schools in Wisconsin or whatever, so it could, or she could just say OT schools or Masters of Criminal Justice programs or Masters of Public Administration programs. That way you can just see that like there's a lot of programs out there. Okay, so that's the first step of just like becoming familiar with those. And then the second part of that is just making a list. So once you've like kind of like look through those lists, just making a list of what universities offer your desired programs. And then just a tip, like save the links somewhere so you don't have to do a Google search every single time you want to look at UCCS's psychology program. You can just like click on a link or a favorite. Really good tip. You can save it for later. What's your name? And the Colts. Yeah. Alfonso. Okay, I'm a Bengals fan, so I can't.
Also,
It's okay. It's fine. Never seen it. Okay, so where Alfonso said requirements, which is a really good point to point out or thing to kind of look at. So degree requirements and requirements for your application are a really big deal. That could be why you're here and just like, what's the actual process look like for applying to graduate school? We're going to go over that in just a minute. But just like kind of like looking through their websites and determining like, okay, this is good. Like these are some things I'm gonna need like three letters of recommendation, or know I'm gonna have to take the GRE. Just to familiarize yourself with those. Determine admission requirements. Sorry, I got these out of order. But like determining concentrations. So what's your concentration in psych?
Geropsychology, so psychology of older adults.
Yeah, so that is like a very specific thing, right? So there are some programs that it'll just be like that. It's just like one, like, so I'll say like here at UCCS, sociology might be a good one. So they look at a lot of different areas of sociology. They do not have concentrations for their master's. But for psychology, the majority of her coursework is going to be very specific to gero psychology. Does that make sense? Some programs have that, some don't. I talk to students a lot and they're like, I want to be a underwater basket weaver that only works on Thursdays or something, like something. And so some of those things are very specific. And so that's why doing those searches now are really important. Okay. And then don't be afraid to ask questions. So this is your journey. You have the right to ask questions. You have the right to get your answers, the questions, like your answers to your questions. So don't be afraid to ask. You may have any questions about this. Okay. Okay. So what is required for your graduate school application? Who wants to maybe give me one or two that they think? So these are things that you have to submit when you're actually applying to grad school. Yep. Anybody else? So she's, yep. So personal statement, letters of recommendation, resume. Yep. What'd you say? Transcripts. Yep. GRE scores, maybe. A lot of schools, some still require GRE. But yeah, so that's a great list. So this is not all inclusive. These are just some like general areas that at UCCS and all of our programs at UCCS, some of these don't even require some of this stuff. But just like here's some things to start thinking about. So the application itself, like your name, your address, transcripts. Some programs require GRE or GMAT scores, personal statement, which we're going to go into all of these. So I'm not going to do a lot of on this slide, but like letters of recommendation, your resume, application fee, and then also they might want you to talk about like your work experience or come in for an interview or do like a virtual interview. So just some things to be thinking. We're going to send this out to you guys. Okay. All right. Step 3 is preparing. If you have a question, yeah. So, yeah, so your program specifically, so once you narrow it down to a specific program that you want to apply for, that will be an application requirement that you have to submit. So it will say it like on, so like say you decide to go to like the University of Kansas. Okay. On their app, on their page, like when you insert, what program are you entering or what undergrad? Okay, so say you're looking at psychology programs, you decide, okay, I'm gonna go to the University of Kansas, and you've narrowed it down to that. Some programs might require the GRE, some might not. And so it's kind of a personal decision of like, do I want to like pursue this program or not? Based on that GRE score, but it will tell you. So each application at each school is going to be different. So that's why it's important to do your research on the like on the front end to make sure you're preparing for those things. Okay. Give it some time. It does take, you have to, it's a standardized test. So studying for it, taking practice tests and things like that is really important. And then it takes a while to get the scores too. Yeah.
Can I add something specific? Are you looking at psych programs for grad, I'm assuming? A lot of psych specific ones have moved to it being optional.
Yeah.
Because there's a whole thing about it disproportionately affecting non-traditional students because it's very expensive. During COVID, it was impossible to take the GRE online. So a lot of them are moving to it being optional. And so then I think that can be in your favor too.
Yep. It'll say optional, like they're pretty specific about what they need on the application. So anywhere you look, like their requirements are going to be like very laid out and very specific about what they need. Down to like even some programs might say like, we need one letter of recommendation from a professor, one letter of recommendation from a supervisor, a peer, or something like that. So like they're really specific with what they want on the application. So part of that is starting to prepare. Okay, so once you've determined like those application requirements, and things that you need for your application, it's time to start preparing for those. So there's going to be some road work ahead, right? We're on the road to grad school. There's some road work ahead here. So it's a lot of work. Okay, I feel like sometimes I'm from Kentucky, so like I feel like I-75 is always under construction. Feel like that on like whatever road is right here. 25. Yeah. So like yeah, that one. So right, you're under construction. And it's okay, right? So it's okay to like be like, okay, like I know I've got my letters of recommendation. Now I'm gonna focus on like making my resume great, or like I'm gonna work on my interviewing skills. And it's not something that you have to do like you don't have to do it all at once, right? So that's why you're here, because that's good. So you're starting to kind of plan it too. But just know like it's also a time that like you're gonna be doing a lot of like self-reflection and like, do I want to do this? Just keep driving. Okay. Don't give up. But just know that, you can make a roadmap. So I'm trying to go with our theme. So you just want to make a roadmap for like how you're going to obtain certain things, right? So letters of recommendation. Do you have to take the GRE? Do you need to do some prep with that? Does your program require you to take any prerequisite classes? Okay, so OT, for example, I'm sure you have to have like anatomy, physiology, probably some nutrition. I have no idea. I'm just rattling some stuff off. Maybe psychology.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Oh my God. So, um, right. So, but she's probably already Nakia. Yes, Nakia. Okay, has probably already done some research. So she's like talked to her advisor, and she's like, okay, I know I have to fit these classes in somewhere in my degree plan. Okay, so just keep driving. It's gonna be hard and a little bumpy, but just keep going. Okay, stop. Okay, check your application deadlines. I know that that seems so silly, but when you get a syllabus in your class, like for those of you that use a planner, okay, let me just say what I do. Because I'm crazy. The first thing I do is write everything in my planner. Okay, every deadline, I'm just like, I don't want to forget it. Okay, so you would be surprised how many students reach out to me, they're like wanting to apply for like an intake. So say they want to apply for the fall. So for psychology, for example, psychology only admits once a year and they admit a year in advance. So if they miss the deadline in November for like the upcoming fall, they have to wait a whole year before they apply again. Okay, so please, that's why I'm saying start your research early. Um, there are still programs, like if you're graduating in May and you want to start in the fall, there are still programs out there that are accepting students, even some here at UCCS. So please check your application deadlines. If there's one thing you're going to listen to right now, that's what I need you to hear. Check your deadlines. Okay. Got it. Check your deadlines. Okay. All right. Caution. Letters of recommendation are coming. They're ahead. So we know that this is like a huge area for students. Jen, we're probably going to go over. I'm sorry. I'm a talker. I can't help it. So I am. I'm self-aware. I know that I talk a lot. Okay. So letters of recommendation. How many of you are a little freaked out about this? Okay. I'm here to tell you it can be a lot easier. I'm going to tell you how. So you can do things now to start preparing to get letters of recommendation later when you start applying to graduate school. Okay. So some of those things that you can do now, and some of this like might seem kind of silly, but I'm telling you, as an instructor, I know that Catherine teaches. Jen, do you teach a class? Okay. So like Jen teaches a class. Some of this stuff is just like basic like student success type skills. Okay. So just build positive relationships with your professors. Go to office hours, talk to them, ask them how they're doing. Like, say hello when you walk into the classroom. Just be kind. That's like one thing that sticks out, I think, the most is like when you're kind to your professors, it makes an impact on them, right? Because they might see like 200 students a day. But like your hello might stick in their mind and they're like, oh, yeah, like that student was a great student in my class. Like, you never know. Just go to class. I know that seems silly, but just go. And show up for like study sessions or like class activities. Be kind to your professors. Go to office hours. And then when you do like get time to like start requesting those letters of recommendation from the professors that you've like been in good contact with and you've like built a good relationship with them, just give them enough time to do the letter of recommendation. So like if don't email them the night before and say it has to be submitted tomorrow, they're probably not even going to read your email until a week later, right? I'm just being honest. Okay. And then so just give them enough time and then stay in touch with your people, right? So yes.
Wouldn't you, I always thought you write the letter out for them, just have them sign it to make it easy on them.
No, can't do that.
Really?
No.
Provide like your
Yeah.
resume, CV, any
Yeah.
works that you've done, any papers you've written and things like that, give them something to go on.
Yeah.
And that's where like these interactions are so important with them. So they actually have something to write about. So they know you as a person who can speak to your strengths.
I would say most of them won't take something from you and just sign it. I would say.
It's like supportive.
Yeah,
It helps them
Right.
get a gist of it, but they'll write their own letter.
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of like, so here at UCCS, we have like we actually have like a system where you put in their email and it sends them like a personalized link that they like, it takes the student completely out of it. So like you might not even see your letters of recommendation that they submit for that. Yeah, that's a good question. Do you have one?
I just wanted to add
Yeah.
to that. So one thing that might help is when you're going through a class, write down some of the things you've done in that class and assignments you're doing really well on. So keep track of your grades. If you have a teacher in mind that you want to get a recommendation from, like track your progress in that class, because I've asked for letters of recommendation and they'll actually ask for that sometimes. They'll say, hey, can you send me, how did you do on this assignment? How did you do on this paper? Like,
Yeah.
so keep track of that.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I'm gonna add that to our slide if that's okay. I'm gonna add that. Okay. All right. Do my job. Okay. So does anybody have any other questions about letters of recommendation? Okay, yes.
It's more a comment. I would also always recommend saying, do you feel comfortable writing me a strong letter of recommendation? Anyone can write a letter. I had a professor who had he was a stats professor who was like, this is a 50% effort letter of recommendation all the way to 100% letter of recommendation. You want that 100% all the time. So saying strong, I
Yep.
think.
Yep. Yeah, so just like making sure you get, so just making sure you ask nicely and then like making sure you articulate yourself very well of like, I'm applying to this psychology program and I was in your psych 800 class or whatever. Can you like write me I think that's great, a strong letter of recommendation. Okay, do you have a question?
Yeah, the recommendations like time sensitive.
Hmm.
Is that gonna affect that or?
You? So
You can ask.
you can ask them. Yeah.
They'll keep it on file, like you can
Yes.
ask them just in case of like memory, you want them to remember you, go ahead and ask them early, and it's okay to do that, and they can just save it, but you've already had conversations before this, they know about your goals. So
Yeah.
it will be no problem for them then.
Yeah.
Like a survey, what, 2 years ago, 3 years ago.
Just stay in touch with them.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Keep talking to them. Send them a text every once in a while and just be like, how you doing? You know, whatever.
Send them a card at the holidays.
Yeah. Add them to your Christmas card list and okay. No, you don't have to do
And I
that.
just have one tip too,
Yeah.
because I know how intimidating it is to faculty, your professors. You are paying them for this class. You
Yep.
know, they're here to help you. Like this is why we're all in education. We want you to succeed. So, just think about those two things. We are here for you. So we want to help you. Just give us time.
Yep. Yes.
And one other tip too.
Yeah.
I've done this with my letter of recommendations. Be specific in what you need that recommendation for. And even if it's for a job or something that you're applying for, if you're specific with them in what it is, they can write to that a lot better, especially when you know your skills or when it's class or.
Yep. Yep. Great. Anything else on letters of recommendation? Okay. Catherine, you're up. I'm sorry.
Okay, I won't take too long on this. Basically, it's tips. Definitely come for one-on-one career coaching, and we can go into depth with your documents. But essentially, different programs will require different documents. So make sure you know whether your program is asking for a resume or a CV, which is the curriculum vitae. They are very different documents, okay? So today I'm going to just give you a little brief summary of what the difference is. But the biggest thing is this is your chance to tell your story. It's like a job interview. They're only going to know about you through these documents. So we want to make sure that you're really providing all of the information that's going to help them see if you're a good match for the program. This is your chance to list your academic information, your accomplishments, put self-reflection, look at the rearview mirror. What have you been doing in the past couple of years? And kind of start just listing them out. And we can help you build your resume or CV from scratch if you don't have one, but it just helps us to know what you've already been working on. Make sure to be very specific. So that's something we can help you with. The bullet points, if you have any on your resume, those are the toughest to write. And so we can help make sure that they are very specific, quantifiable, impactful. Because sometimes you only have a few pages to list all of your amazing work. Make sure to list your off-campus experience as well. Even unpaid experience counts. Okay, volunteering, research, anything like that, internships. Think about your soft and hard skills. If you've learned a new program, coding, if you learned a new language, think about those things. Those are really important and could be relevant to your program as well. Get it proofread and make sure it's tailored to each program. So just like jobs, we don't want to just send out a general resume. We want it to be tailored to those specific programs. A Gero Psych program will want to learn more about like, what have you done related to this field? Have you taken classes in this field? So that's what we mean by tailoring. All right, so here's a list of categories to have on your resume. You'll have a copy of this or the CV. Basically, take the curriculum vitae will have all the things the resume does, except for the bullet points and the page limit. The curriculum vitae will have both of these columns, but there is no page limit. I've seen CVs that are 60 pages long. And so just know you can really expand on it. That's what the CV is. It is a story about your life, vita, right? The resume might have more of a page limit. 1 to 2 pages is probably max that I would recommend. If you need any help on condensing it, we can certainly help you with that because that's a big struggle, is just the formatting of it. Here are just some examples. We have way more we can send you based on your program. We can be very specific. Here on the left, the 2 pages are just a little sample of a CV. So you can see there's more categories, publications, presentations, just a lot more tailored to that program versus the resume that it is a bit more condensed. Some programs will just say, hey, we want everything on 1 page. So there's a lot to do there with formatting. Pick your style, know your style, your car, which one you want to take to the application. All right, so moving on to the personal statement. And we can definitely, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the card. We can get those answered by us in the panel. Personal statements. So some programs will require 1 personal statement, some won't. It's all about the program, so it's important to make sure you know what your program requires. Sometimes they might have additional documents that you need to submit, such as writing samples. For law school, they require addendums, like a diversity statement. They might have questions about diversity if you're working with people a lot in your program, or more information about your research or philosophy. So important to know this in advance, so you also give yourself enough time to get all of this prepared for yourself. Things to know about the personal statement. We don't want to be cliche on the personal statements, just like applying to college the first go around. You want to make sure that they know about you and also your purpose for applying to this program, but they're also testing your writing ability. Do y'all write a lot of papers? Okay, in grad school, writing really matters. And so, especially if it's a lot of like humanities or adjacent to science, you're going to be writing a lot more. So you want to get this proofread. We're happy to proofread it with you. Any of these offices would be happy to look at it for you. The Multiliteracy Excel Center, they are trained to read through the grammar, through all of that. So definitely take advantage of those resources you have. I worked with like Harvard a lot, and basically I love what they told me about personal statements. Think about your why. Why now? We talked about timing, and why this program. Okay, those are really important things to reflect on. Make sure to follow those instructions as well. Yes. Great question. So the program itself will give you the page length number. That will give you either a word amount or page number. So it just depends. I know for my grad program, I did public admin, I did 2 pages. So it just depends. Do you remember?
Yeah, I think typically it's like 500 words, but often each place will say like, answer these 4 questions and 4 questions. will be
Yeah,
given.
and they might have different
Yeah.
categories. Yep.
So that's important to look at in advance, especially with psychology as well, because they will ask questions about like diversity, they'll ask questions about research experience, and you'll want to kind of format them all to be a little different. Too.
Yeah, you can write them on a separate Word doc and then get that edited and then copy and paste into it, just so that you don't feel pressured to submit at a certain point. Thank you. Okay, so moving on, just for anybody that was, I know pre-OT, have you met with Sarah? Sorry to put you on the spot. Good. Okay, so Sarah is our pre-health career coach. She does all of those pre-health professions and helping you get into those grad programs. So she's happy to answer questions for you. There is a healthcare career fair or last fair happening this semester where you can get experiences to boost up your resume. So just so you know, we also for pre-law have the Center for Legal Studies with Dr. Kling. We just had the DU law panel here. We had law students talk about their experience. So it's a great opportunity to connect with different fields and programs. So just know those are the offerings we have here. All right, moving into interview tips. First off, be prepared. Do you know if your program requires interviews? Okay, that's the first thing. Not all of them do. It's actually pretty uncommon. Did you get interviewed? Oh, you did.
I did for in psych. Some programs will interview for a master's at a master's level and a PhD level. Some will not interview at a master's level. UCCS does not interview at a master's level, but does at PhD.
PhD level. Okay, so good thing to ask. Feel free to talk to the admissions offices of those programs and see like, do you require interview? Because it will be important to be prepared for it. At the Career Center, we offer mock interviews and we can customize them to your program. So we're happy to do that for you. During the interview itself, it's always good to be a good listener. Make sure you know when you're prompted to talk. There might be different formats or structure for your interview. It might be a 30-minute interview. It could be different rounds of interviews. So that's important to know. And then anticipate the unexpected. I actually just did pre-med mock interviews today, and we had one question in there that stumped a lot of students. It was about current events in the medical field. They weren't really prepared to answer that one, so we worked on that one with them. But just know that the questions there can be a little bit about how do you think on the spot. We do have questions that we can share with you if you want to prepare on your own. But also, it's important to be thoughtful in the interview when they ask, do you have a question for us for our program? Make sure to have 2 to 3 prepared questions to ask them. Please, biggest takeaway, don't say, no, I'm good. Always have at least one question. And just, the little things matter with an interview. So things like what's on your background? What are you wearing? Are you providing consistent eye contact? What all of those different competencies are something that we can certainly help improve. Okay, and then last thing with networking, goes for all of you with different community members. So we have professors here in different fields that you can connect with. Their bios are on the website, so you know ahead of time what their focuses are in terms of research. So you can always connect with professors. You have all of our offices you can network with. You have your graduate peer mentors that you can network with. So definitely make sure to put yourself out there. Practice a little bit of an elevator pitch. What are you looking for? What are your goals? Be authentic. You want to go into a program that really matches you. And there, like we said, there are so many specific fields you can go into. My field is emergency management with public admin, so that was just one out of like 6 different routes I could have taken. So definitely be very mindful about who you're connecting with to have those questions answered. Most of us are on LinkedIn. Feel free to add us. If you don't have a LinkedIn yet, we can help you make one. It's a really great tool to connect with alumni as well. There's about 46,000 alumni on there. And there's also free courses as UCCS students that you can take to boost up your resume. So definitely keep that in mind. All right, that's everything. Thank you.
Sorry, we're almost done, Jen, I promise. Okay, the last step is apply. Okay, so you've put together all of these things, you've done all the steps. Please submit your application. You would also be surprised how many students do, they fill out everything and they submit all the things that they need, but they don't really submit their application. I'm not making that up. So please just make sure you apply, keep a record that you applied. Promise it will be helpful. And then the last thing is just remember, just because you have a detour, that doesn't mean that your journey is over. So there, maybe you don't get into the program, like your dream program, like that's okay. There are, you pivot, right? And so even though you might have a detour, like just remember, it doesn't mean your journey's over. Keep driving. And I promise good things will come.
Come talk to us. We can talk
Yes.
about gap years and all kinds of things.
Yes. And so we have some stuff at the end, but we're gonna email this out to you guys so you guys have it. But now I will turn it over to Colleen, who's gonna talk about our unwritten curriculum. You guys doing okay? We good? Okay.
A lot of pizza.
Yes. There is.
Tons.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Okay, so I am going to talk about the unwritten curriculum that kind of goes into grad school. And so, as someone who is a first generation student, it can be incredibly hard to know and get through a 4-year program, let alone adding an additional 2 or 6 years on top of that. And so I wanted to kind of give some insight into and try and get what I've learned, get what some of my colleagues have learned written down, to try and provide a little bit of guidance. So, something that you've probably heard a lot is that timeline is everything. For example, well, I have to take a GRE, something that you can play to your advantage. If you know that you are not a good standardized test taker, don't apply to programs that require that. There are thousands of programs out there. Apply to one that's optional. Play to your strengths, right? Um, Grad school applications are so much different than applying to undergrad. As we talked about, a lot goes into it. You might be writing 4 tiny little essays. You might be writing 1 large essay. A lot of programs will have 3 letter writers, but maybe your program, like UCCS's PhD clinical psych program, you have to have 4. So there's a lot that goes into it. I definitely would recommend like a little spreadsheet that's like, what are my dates? What are the requirements? What are they asking? Your personal statement, you can probably write 1 and just tweak it depending on what those questions are. But having all of that organized is great. It's also good to send that to your letter writers too, right? Like if all your deadlines are different, send that to them. So timeline is everything. I would highly recommend starting to look into graduate programs like the spring before you're going to be applying. So like if you're applying in the fall of, I don't know what year it is. 2024. I want you to start. I was thinking ahead to like 20, whatever. You should start looking now into what programs you're going to apply to into the fall. So, like I said, they're more time consuming. You're going to have to hunt down things. You're going to have to find people to write your letters. And also, a big thing is like a match. So, matching into a grad program is a lot different than undergrad because you're in such a niche setting. You want that match to be really good for what you want to do long term. If you're settling in your grad program, you're not doing yourself any favors down the line for your career. And so that can also be time consuming too, to reach out and see if, you know, maybe you found this like perfect program. You find a mentor who you know you're just going to connect with, and then they're not accepting applicants for 3 years, right? And so it can be time consuming to find out who's accepting applications. And there's just a lot that goes into it. So communication, I think, is key with this, whether it is for asking for letters of recommendation, whether it is for preparing for the interview process, whether it's reaching out to a future mentor to see if they even are interested in what you want to study. And so it can be really overwhelming, and it can be nerve-wracking to reach out to people and ask them these questions. And something that was talked about is that, one, we are paying our professors and we are giving them money, they're giving us knowledge and support too, right? But that additional support is something that comes with asking. And so it doesn't have to be. Also, just about everyone in academia, if you haven't figured it out, is a huge nerd, right? We love school. That's why we're here. And so um, if you tell a professor that you want to go and do the same career path that they're doing, oh my gosh, they will be thrilled, right? So it doesn't have to be this intimidating thing, especially if you've taken those steps to build good rapport with your professors. I would also recommend reaching out early. So let's say you've heeded my advice, you've started looking into grad schools like today after this meeting, fueled by pizza. It's 6 o'clock on a Thursday and you're ready to go. And you see some labs that you think are great. But you don't know if they're accepting applications, right? Those things online can be way outdated, right? You can look at a website and it'll say, I am accepting applicants for the fall 2019 cycle. And like, that's great. It's 2024, as I just realized. So reaching out early shows your interest, but it also saves you time and money, right? So I would recommend reaching out. I think I reached out to my current advisor in like August, because if I knew that I wasn't going to get in here, I'm going to focus on something else, right? I'm not going to apply. I'm not going to pay that application fee if I can't get into the lab that I want to go to. So reaching out early. I reached out saying like, I'm interested in studying these general things. I think it'd be a good fit in your lab. What do you think? Go from there. They'll remember that. My mentor said like, oh yeah, you reached out to me. I remember talking with you. How's your thesis been? Stuff like that. And like I said, it will save you time and money. The last thing you want to do is to go through and apply to like 20 programs, and only 10 of which actually had openings in the labs that you wanted to go to, right? So time management, we've talked a lot about this timeline process, right? And time is money. This application process will take way longer than you think, which is why I would also recommend the spreadsheet thing, because you can start it, you can forget everything, and then you can come back to the Excel spreadsheet because life happens and you might take a month off from looking into programs. Or once you start looking at so many programs, all of them start to look the same and all of the questions sound the same, but a little bit different. And you also don't want to be rushed, right? So reaching out early is important. And something that I really want to emphasize is that you really want your program to be a good fit. Getting into a graduate program can often result in you making a pretty big life change. You might move to a different state. You might move to a different city that still feels drastically different than your current city. I'm from a small town in Illinois. If I went to school in Chicago, that would have been a very different change for me and different experience than coming here to Colorado Springs. And so you really want your program to be a good fit, not just for the program, but the city that you're moving to too, right? If your religion is very important to you, is your religion represented here? Is your race welcomed, right? Small town in Illinois, it's not a very welcoming place to certain people. It's not great. It's the reason why I moved, right? So you want to make certain that you will feel safe. You will be able to find culturally specific food that tastes good, right? That's important too. So your life will be going on for 4 years, 6 years, 2 years, however long it takes you. You want to feel comfortable and supported that entire time. Some other things, I would suggest always expressing gratitude when you can to future mentors, to your professors, to your future letter writers. Your connections are really invaluable. It's also really important, I think, to find mentors in a program outside of research mentors, like graduate students who are in that program, right? And also, when you interview, don't settle. There are so many things that go into an interview cycle that you have no control over. You could be the most perfect applicant. That program might not have funding. Your lab person that you are interviewing to be in, they might have third pick on graduate students. So then if two other people who are before them get to pick, you might not be selected. That doesn't mean that you're not a good applicant. So whenever we talked about the detours that can happen, I think it's important to also keep in mind that if you don't make it through on your first round, that doesn't mean you should give up. It doesn't mean that you're not a good applicant. That actually might mean that you were a better applicant, but you just didn't have fit, right? Or maybe the program thought that you would do better elsewhere because they saw your potential and they thought you had bigger and better ideas, right? There are so many things that go into it, and it can be hard because getting rejected from a process that you spend months preparing for hurts, right? It does not mean that you are not good enough. Just go through more cycles, try again, apply the same program again, do something to strengthen your CV in the meantime, kick butt next time, right? And so my final thing is that once you get to grad school, or even if you're thinking about it, you might hear people say, oh, you have to pick three between like your health, your social life, school, hobbies, and sleep. They're like, you have to pick three, maybe four, like 3.5. Don't listen to them. Those people are lying to you. You will be a better student if your health is good. You will be a better student if your social life is fulfilling. You will most definitely be a better student if you are sleeping because you need your brain to do schoolwork, right? And your brain needs sleep. So, whatever that balance is, it might look different than what it is now, but there is a way to find balance in those areas. That might mean that for 1 week, your health is a little bit more important and maybe your hobbies go to the side for that week, but that doesn't mean that the entire time that you're in grad school, you can only have 3 of these things, right? So if you hear people saying that, nod along and just know that you know better, right? Everyone knows that? Don't listen to them? Okay, all right. So that's all I have for now. So I think now we're moving into the break in which you guys can eat even more pizza. Please eat the pizza, and then we will have our panel afterwards, right?
About 5 minutes here and then we'll get started.
Yeah, you can schedule an appointment as many times as you need. So
That's amazing. Nice. So we're, okay, so can you just remind me?
I went to design my postdoc.
I'm like, doing this whole. Figured out.
Yeah, and this is pronounced.
So, yeah, but I started out. It's interesting how much. Something was out. I've been in once you're really going, it was get more advantage. Yeah, I love to, yeah. Yeah.
No, I was on my college. But yeah,
Yeah.
I guess small rare, like.
Yes, I can do it. Yes, this is Capstone, yeah. Yeah. And I went to her, yeah. I think so.
So you kind of have research interest.
No, I think. Gonna see these. Yeah. Well, it's not about it. Do you want to present into that thing? I definitely. And to have it makes my pills on this. So they're not.
Here.
Can my online participants let me know if you can hear me okay? We'll go ahead and get the panel started. Okay, waiting. I think we're good. Okay. So I just have a few kind of like pre-prepared questions here, but I did want to make sure there's a lot of time for you all to ask your own questions. So we'll kind of maybe do a little bit of back and forth, and we'll have each of the panelists, kind of help offer some advice here. And as we did mention, they are all grad peer mentors. You can set up appointments to meet with them outside of this as well too. So that's part of your packet. You can scan that QR code and set up those appointments. So by way of introduction, how will we go along? And you all introduce yourselves. So your name, what's your department, what's your area of study, and maybe what year in your program are you? So Colleen, kind of already know about you, but go ahead.
Okay. As a refresher, I'm Colleen. I'm in the PhD program getting my degree in clinical geropsychology. It's a clinical psychology program with a geropsychology emphasis. I transferred in here with my master's from a school near St. Louis, Missouri. So I don't quite know what year I'm in as a result, but I am almost done. That's what matters.
That's what matters.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
And I study older adults. I also study anxiety, depression, suicidality, and personality disorders in older adults. Right.
That's good. Yeah.
Okay.
Perfect.
I'm Kiri. I am a biochemistry's master's student and finishing up my first year. For my research project, I deal with Epstein-Barr virus, which is also known as mono. So in looking at two proteins and how they bind together and stuff. So that's kind of my area of research that I'm looking at.
I'm Megan. I am in my third year. I graduated in May in clinical. Thank you. In clinical psychology with a trauma emphasis. And my research focuses are studying protective factors in trauma survivors. So like my thesis is looking at different protective factors such as coping self-advocacy and meaning making in sexual assault survivors to inform how we can help treat them. So yeah.
Hi, my name is Reeti. I'm in the first year of my PhD program. I'm in the College of Education, doing the leadership research and policy PhD program. My research is on transitional experiences of international students and the feeling of marginality and mattering when they transition. I'm an international student myself. I'm from Nepal and I did my master's in UCCS and now I'm doing my PhD.
Hi, I'm Brandon Collins. I'm in my fourth year of my PhD in the computer science department. I research cybersecurity and game theory, which is kind of looking at a mathematical perspective on cybersecurity interactions.
My name's John. I'm in my third year of my master's program in clinical psychology here. I study death anxiety.
I'm Josh. I'm also another master's in the psychology department, but I'm on the psychological science track instead of the clinical track. And I study a lot of things about emotions. So like what people believe about their emotions, how aware they are of the different kinds of emotions they experience and how those things influence mental health outcomes.
Awesome. Thank you all. So you might often get a question like, oh, what's it like being a graduate student? But I want to be really specific about this. What did you do as a graduate student yesterday? What did your day look like?
I mean, I forgot what year it was.
I don't know.
For context, I'm training for a really long run, so like my brain is a little foggy right now. So yesterday, I did clinical work yesterday. So as a practicum student, in let me back up. As part of the PhD in clinical psychology, you're required to do practicum work in which you get to be a clinician for a number of different sites around the community. And so yesterday I did clinical work. So what that looked like for me was looking at a referral for different assessments. As working with older adults, one of the things that we do for assessment is looking at diagnosing Alzheimer's disease or any other dementia processes. So I caught up on some admin work related to that. Then I, no surprise, went on a run. Then I had, you know, my meal. I watched some TV. I still had time to do that. Yeah, about it.
Nice.
Thank you. Let's see. It's a hard question, right?
Yeah. What day is it?
Let's see. Did a workout in the morning, then came and did like 5 hours of lab work, running an experiment. And then I still had time to hang out with a friend and we grabbed dinner, which was really nice, and just hung out outside because it was still kind of nice outside. It was great. Worked on writing part of my thesis yesterday a little bit as well. That's kind of my day.
Great models of work-life balance here. See the self-care interspersed with the schoolwork. Great. You, Megan.
Okay, let's see. I did some morning stretches and that was the second day that I've done that because I'm trying to get into a routine to do morning stretches. So I did that when I first woke up, and then I went to the wellness center. So I intern at the wellness center, seeing clients, doing similar to what Colleen does. So I had a few clients that I saw and then did some paperwork there. And then I had class, so developmental psychology seminar. And then I did some work. I also have a job that I make money at, a lot of different things. Usually throughout my day, it's usually like either 2 or 3 of those things. So I worked at my job at the Lyda Hill Institute. And then I went home. I called my grandparents. I talked to them for a little bit, ate some dinner and watched. Okay, this is really bad. I'm gonna expose myself, but I really like reality TV. Like it's a guilty pleasure of mine. So I watched 90 Day Fiance as like a wind down. And then up here.
All right.
I'd gone to North Carolina to meet a cousin, so I got back yesterday morning. There's this amazing conference that is happening at Lake Tahoe in October, so I submitted the proposal just so that I can visit Lake Tahoe if I get accepted. So I did my proposal, submitted after I got back. I had a little chat with Colleen yesterday, went for a walk, and I meal prepped because I went to grocery meal prepped for a week because it's going to be a long week for myself, my work. Yeah. Nothing interesting.
So I think I woke up at like 10. And then I showed up here at 11 after eating. And then I worked on the problem. I'm working on a problem where like you have a computer and the bad guys can hack into it without you knowing. And how often should you reinstall the OS to like kick them out? And I have like this packet that's 20 pages long right now of me doing math. I wrote a proof on Monday that I'm very excited about. And so I kept working that through. And then I think I left at 4. And then at 6, I drove down to Fountain and I played a fighting game tournament. And I made $25.
All right. Well, that sounds like a great day.
I got up a little earlier. I had clinical work at 8 a.m. So I had to get in. And it was mostly clinical work. So I work at the UCCS Aging Center with older adults and their caregivers. I saw 3 clients yesterday, and in between the clients, I did paperwork and I worked on a paper I'm trying to submit to a journal. After that, I went and saw a movie that was shown on campus and then got a beer with this guy at like 8 o'clock. Like grad student.
Let's see, I woke up yesterday, not proud of it, but I doom scrolled for about an hour before I did anything productive. And then I went to a coffee shop and I defended my thesis last week, so oh, thank you. Finished up all the edits on my thesis based on feedback yesterday and got that sent off. Then I went to my job here on campus. I work in the Math Excel Center as a statistics tutor. And no one came in, so I just worked on more stuff.
Please go see
updated-
Josh there if you need to. He just,
Yeah.
Math.
I updated some materials for the class ITA4, and we got a paper accepted recently, so I was working on the proofs on that to get that already. And then I left and went to trivia, and yeah, drank beer with this man right here.
awesome. All right, so do we have some questions from our audience for any of our panelists? You could ask a specific panelist, you could ask them all. Any pressing questions? I see one in the back and then, yeah.
Okay. This is to all of y'all. When you applied for graduate school, did you apply to one or more program? And if so, did you get into, if you, let's say, applied to 3, you got into all 3, or did you get into 2 out of 3?
How many programs did you apply to? Just hold up your hand.
I went through 2.
Oh, wow.
I did 2 rounds.
Okay. And how many did you get into? Okay. Does that give you kind of a sense there? All right. So yeah, for grad programs, depending on how I can answer this, depending on how
I'll hop in and say it matters a lot how prestigious of. So you can apply to a million places, but if they're like the top place, then it might not go so good, but.
Yeah, good to have a spread of options, right?
Yeah, I feel like I probably would have applied to more, but I was already like working with my mentor. So like I knew, where I wanted to apply, mostly because I wanted to work with my mentor. So I feel like that's like kind of a unique situation, already kind of knowing someone that you want to work with and that they want to work with you. And, that kind of facilitates the process of getting in.
Yeah, mine's kind of similar to Megan. I started undergraduate research with my mentor. So for grad school, I just got to continue on the same project and I liked my project. And so getting into grad school was kind of a given in a way too, because I'm also on an accelerated master's program track. So I started my master's as an undergraduate and have just continued. So.
Yeah, for me, it was like imposter syndrome coming from being an international student, first gen, English not being the first language. So like it all got reflected on the schools that I applied to, spent a lot of money there. I should have, like thinking about it now, gotten into like applied to 3 or 4. But I wanted to be on the safer side because if I didn't get, I had to go back home, wait for a year, and then like do all the visa stuff and then get back. So I didn't want to take the risk. So turned out to be lucky.
Yeah.
Yes. My husband's still serving time in the military. I shouldn't say serving time. Sounds like he's just. He's still stationed out here in Colorado Springs, so I'm looking at applying all over the United States, just trying to narrow things down and not look. Trying to inquire from other people, hey, did you apply to grad school? And people are like, no, I'm just going to UCCS up the street.
Right.
It's not like that.
I would say too, it depends on like what, obviously the prestige like Brandon mentioned, but like master's programs are, I would argue, easier to get into the PhD levels programs, at least in psych. So like the first year that I applied to like 5 PhD programs and 1 master's program. And I got into the master's program, none of the PhD programs, got my master's, applied only to PhDs, then only applied to 2, got into 1. So like you can also see like places will list their acceptance rates often online too. So you can kind of gauge like, is this more of a safety school? Like, do they accept everyone? There are some psych programs that like, if you're willing to pay them enough money, you will get in. Those are often like PsyD programs, right? So you can look at that too, to kind of gauge, that might help how many you might want to apply to too, depending on how exclusive they are. Good.
It's also a good exercise to apply to several if you can and want to afford it, right? Because I ended up just staying on at UCCS, but it was a really good experience for me to apply to a ton of different places because I got to think about my own interests and what my next steps were going to be. So yeah, it was a couple $100 in application fee, but I would say it's probably worth it overall.
One little thing, do you mind talking about cohort size? Because I think this is like relevant to programs might have different size of acceptance, like how many people they accept each year might be different for you. You know,
I want to say here I applied. I think there was like over 300 applicants. At least, almost like, yeah, at least over 300 applicants for my program, and I think like 12-ish got in. Does that sound kind of?
For the masters.
Yeah.
Okay.
So nobody got it.
Yeah, okay, so that's, but our program is like pretty competitive, I think, compared to others. So that was for masters, and then PhD, I think less.
About 3 get in a year. That also depends on how this school is funded. So PhD students here receive funding, master students do not receive any funding, as much funding.
Very little.
Very little funding. And so that kind of puts impact into it too, as to how much money the school has, if it's a school that funds their students. My master's program at my previous institution had like consistently had 10 people every year. They would only accept 10 people and that was it, because that was the funding that they knew that they could provide.
It seems like the 12-ish is pretty consistent, at least with my program, but it really varies per program. I don't know if anyone else knows about like the.
And I will also say like psych runs at the leadership program, they run on the cohort base, so they kind of let one group in and they kind of go through the exact same classes and everything. Not every program operates on that exact same system too. Sometimes you're really only going to be spending time with some of the people in just your lab group too. So Brandon, is that kind of similar?
I have no idea what my cohort size was or.
Yeah. So some try to structure it much more around like building that community. Others are like, you're in and you're instantly kind of like spread into your lab, and that's kind of all you know. So.
Leadership.
Oh.
I was gonna. Sorry, so like specifically like for psychology, for example, like both like master's and PhD, depending on how many faculty members they have that are willing to accept students to work on their thesis and then PhD like the dissertation, that plays a lot into it as well. But I think those numbers are like spot on, like 10 to 12 for the masters, and then PhD like 3, 5, 6, depending on the year. Not every program is like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because my cohort, I heard there were around 250, 300 applicants, and 16 got in, 2 left on the way, so we're 14 people. We'll do 2 years of coursework together, so we have a set of classes that we're given, and we have to take those 2 years. And then after 2 years, we start our research. Just depends on the person as well. If we want, we can start research from the very beginning, but we slowly do it as we build up on our classes. And I think it's nice. The point system is nice.
I think too that it really depends, like you were saying, on the program. Like I knew I applied to DU up in Denver as well, and they accepted like 50 to 70 people per year. And it was a lot more expensive.
A lot more expensive.
Yeah, UCCS I think specializes in more smaller cohort-based generally programs.
Other questions from the audience?
Actually, I do.
Okay, yeah.
How many of you guys work part-time or like full-time? Oh, okay. So that's like doable? Okay.
And they're here. Seem well fed and kind of rested, so. Yeah, good question.
Do you mean like work like is as part of your program or like,
No, like separate, like for income.
'cause I'm like a research assistant and that's like,
Oh, and you get paid.
yeah,
Oh,
but it's like very tied to like my program and what I do in my research. So,
Gotcha. So like outside of school.
yeah, and you can be paid half-time, so 20 hours a week, I think,
Yep.
is like how much they can pay you hourly.
And so
But
they can,
it's This much, right? Like you don't make,
15 bucks an hour,
how much?
15 bucks is very typical,
Mhm.
RA.
Okay.
and some programs will, so you can work and then you can also, you get tuition paid for and then they pay you on top of that. So there's some programs that will give you like $1,000 a month for 20 hours of work a week, but then you also get like say 9 credit hours paid for. So
Yeah.
that's kind of how they try to make it a little more just in paying you so little. So
Oh, you just elaborate on that. Are you saying that those courses covers?
That's a
I can-
PhD, right?
That no, so my
You can do the
master's
master's.
program was like that. It had their assistantships had tuition waivers and then you got paid a stipend.
Mhm.
And so the stipend was not that much, but I also didn't have to pay $9,000 to the school, $12,000 to the school. So I lived kind of poor, but didn't get as much debt. Like I got a master's without any debt, which was great. But that was a different program and state laws are dependent on how that impacts it too. But it's not always at a PhD level. There are master's programs that do that, like the one that I was lucky enough to have already been at. But if they say assistantship, sometimes they say tuition waiver or not.
My two programs were very different. For my master's that I did here at UCCS, they gave me $13-14 per hour, maybe work for 20 hours and paid, I think, $2,000 or $1,000 per semester, which was very less, but the scholarship office do have some scholarships that we can apply to as master's student, and departments have funding. But my PhD program is pretty different because they're paying for, what Jen said, 9 credits of my coursework and then providing me a stipend on a monthly basis, which is much better than what I had in my master's program. Also depends on the programs in schools. I applied to one of the schools that were outright about 5 years funding. So if we get in, 5 years of funding was guaranteed. No tuition, stipend, it was amazing. So I got rejected. So it depends on city. Yeah.
And I just want to say some employers might pay for your tuition.
great point. Yeah.
So, like I think, well, ECCS does.
Mhm.
State of Colorado government jobs do, some nonprofits or private sector. So that might be something you want to look into as well.
I actually work at UCCS in a half-time staff position, so 20 hours a week. And that includes like they pay for 9 credit hours a year.
And that's going up to 12 in the fall.
What?
Sorry. Right. You shouldn't have. So
A
yeah,
lot of my classmates do that. Most of the folks are working in UCCS in the ed PhD program leadership. And then most of the people who work outside in school districts or nonprofits, they get a certain credit hour compensation for their work. So it's good.
That's a good question. Circling back to what you said. So did you get into the program first and then you got that job? Or was it like something that came incorporated with the program or applying for the program?
Yeah. So I was in like a different role.
Okay.
So like I started in a student position, actually like working for my mentor. And then I got a staff position, worked full-time for a few years.
Okay.
Then I decided I wanted to go back to graduate school and they let me just go down to half-time.
Okay.
And so it was kind of a unique position, but
Okay.
you know, there's like positions on campus you could still find for like half-time as well in like a staff role. So yeah, it's possible to get one.
So is that something that would typically though come after, I guess, making it into like the master's program?
I think mine, like whenever my master's program was like you're accepted and you get this. Or like you do this, we'll give you this amount of money and that's it. But that was because I got like the assistantship, but the job thing can
The
come.
job I do is like not directly related to my master's program. It's more kind of like admin, research support work, but it's not really like in relation to my graduate program. It's kind of separate. So it's like a separate job so you can really get, I mean, you can get a position at UCCS without having to, go through the master's program first.
I know one thing that the chem and biochem department does is we have graduate teaching assistants. So it's something that you can apply for while you're also applying for the graduate program.
Okay.
And so it's something where we teach the labs. So we'll be instructors of like Gen Chem 1, Gen Chem 2, things like that.
Okay.
And they'll pay for part like your tuition and also give you a stipend and stuff. So that's something that's unique to like our department type thing that we have.
So these are jobs that you would find on the UCCS career website?
On Sean's, that's the student employment job board. Definitely recommend you look at it. And they post positions as early as summer. So, and also reach out to your network with departments you're interested in working with. I know like we probably will be hiring in the fall and we do accept both undergrad and graduate students. So yeah, just reach out and feel free to connect with different departments, see if they have anything coming up.
And yeah, so there are the jobs posted on Sean, and then there's also like the CU careers, which I think you're mentioning. So those are going to be where you'll see a lot of staff positions. It's not directly to student employees that you may also qualify for. And seems like there's always more getting posted. So.
One more question.
Of course.
The 9 to 12 hours that you're talking about, is that a school year or the calendar?
For the tuition benefits, it's for the school year. So yeah, so you have 12 credits to use from August through the summer semester of the next year. There are tax implications on that, so make sure you read about what that entails too. But the taxes are less than the tuition, so there's that to look forward to. So. All right, so kind of transitioning a little away from finances. Of course, if you have more questions, bring them back up. I was curious if you guys could describe the student-faculty relationship with your mentor in your program. What's it like? How often do you meet? How'd you get to know them? So on and so forth.
Start. So I'm in Dr. Siegel's lab, and I found out about this program by just like Googling older adult psychology, and UCCS like popped up. There's not that many specialty programs as you could imagine in older adult psychology. And I looked at his lab on the faculty website. I saw some of his research. By coincidence, I was doing my master's thesis on something that was really closely related to his research. Reached out to him. He said that he was accepting students. He meets with, I think my lab might be one of the only ones in psych that does this. We meet with him one-on-one every week to talk about our ongoing research. As a result, we have a really good timeline in that we get our theses and our dissertations. We tend to get those done on time or early, which is nice to not delay any sort of graduation effort. And then Dan is a funny guy. He goes like this a lot when he's talking. The people notice this.
Yeah.
He's like, thoughts, questions, comments, and I'm like, I don't know what you're doing, but okay. Yeah. But yeah, he's a great mentor. I can always depend on him to answer questions, send me updates. He's always just been really supportive. So.
Let's see, I got into my research lab. So I had some classes with Dr. Kovacs. That's who my mentor is, as an undergrad. And he talked about his research and like what he does at the very beginning of the semester in those classes. And he does work with like viruses and like HIV, lupus, Epstein-Barr, things like that. And I was really interested in those types of things. So I then reached out to him. I sent him an email and said, hey, I'm really interested in like your research topics, more formally, of course. And he sent back an email saying, I would love to meet with you. And so we set up a meeting and we talked about like what I'm interested in, what I was looking to get out of research and things like that, and if I would be a good fit in his lab. And then I started in his lab the summer of before my junior year. And so then that kind of relationship just continued from there. Now, as a graduate student, I meet with him once a week, one-on-one, and we talk about what's going on in my research. I lead the meetings, so I come in with questions for him. I come in with data, things like that. Like he'll ask me questions too and things like that, but it's really up to me to come and say, hey, this is what's going on. This is what I'm doing. And he's more of a hands-off mentor. So he'll like show you how to do something and then he'll go back to his office and be like, do it. And you have to come and ask him questions and like talk to him about things. And so that has been kind of nice in me becoming more of like an individual researcher and being able to learn how to problem solve on my own sometimes, or like try to figure things out before just running straight to him, or getting that confidence to go and talk to him and even, you know, feel stupid in front of him at times, you know, and asking like possibly what sounds like to me a stupid question, but really it's just something I just need clarification on. So that's kind of how he runs his lab, and I really love the skill sets that he does in his lab. He tries to make it so we have unique skill sets that can apply to many things. So yes, I work with a virus right now, but the skills I have can go with many different doors in biochemistry. So that's something that I looked for in labs as well.
I did my last 2 years of my undergrad here at UCCS. And during that time, I found a job on Sean's place, and I ended up, it was like a student, like office, front office position. It was called the Trauma Health and Hazard Center at that time. But that's where I met my mentor. So I work with Dr. Benite, does a lot of trauma work. And so I started there as a student and then became more interested in trauma research because I wasn't sure like what I wanted to do to get my master's. And so I started sitting in on their lab meetings, him and his other students' lab meetings, and decided I wanted to go get my master's in trauma psych. So like I said, I ended up getting like a staff position in that organization, worked for a few years, and then decided I wanted to go back. And then my mentor said that he would mentor me. So let's see, I meet with him just kind of like whenever I need him. I mean, I see him like every day working. So we usually like formally meet maybe like once every few weeks. He's also more like hands-off. Like he waits for me to kind of say like, this is what I need, or this is what I need to do, which has been a new experience for me because in my undergrad, it was always like, this is what you need to do, you know, your classes are telling you when things are due. And then as a master's student, it's more like you have to set your own goals and timelines to like achieve those goals, which was kind of a struggle for me. But I'm doing it. That's why I'm struggling so bad right now, because I waited till my last semester to do my thesis, like to propose and defend. So I did not recommend it. Yeah. But I proposed, so now I just, that's good. Now I'm to the data. So yeah.
For me, when I decided that I wanted to do PhD, I spoke to my master's advisor, asked her for contacts or asked her if she can connect me to anyone or if there are any recommendations that she knows. She did connect me to my current advisor because apparently they went to school together in the same school. So she recommended me to Dr. Mendes, Sylvia Mendes, and then she was in sabbatical at that time. We had a little chat. I really wanted to know her working style because that was important to me. I'm a very slow learner. So I wanted to be with an advisor who would take me as it is. So we had this conversation, we met over for coffee, and then when I thought that I was ready, I decided to apply. Then I got it, I'm working with her now. The program that I'm in currently does not work with advisor student together the first 2 years. It's mostly student-led projects. So I sort of have to decide everything independently, but if I need her anytime, she's always available. So that's the best part of the relationship that we have. I can go and ask her, and like she just arranges a call. We talk and then solve the problem, but basically it's student-led. So nothing significant has come out of our relationship, but I'm sure later it's been comfortable so far.
So I met my advisor when he taught an algorithms class, I think in 2018 during my undergrad. And then I approached him about research and he had been working on problems for maybe a month or two. I think he hired me like after 2 months as an RA, and then I did that for the rest of my undergrad. And then I became his PhD student in 2020. We meet once a week. Actually, I met at 4. That's why I was late. I had my weekly meeting. And then we also have a weekly lab meeting at 4 tomorrow, where someone usually presents something. Like usually they're practicing a presentation they're going to give to a conference or like their master defenses, PhD defenses, that sort of thing. But he was a phenomenal teacher, and that's why I approached him. And then he's been very supportive. He's hands off, like everyone's been saying. It's an environment that encourages you to like try everything you know how to do and, exhaust yourself before you go to them. And that's sort of the skill set you need if you're going to graduate and be, a real doctor.
And I think he just won teacher of the year.
Yeah, no, I wrote a letter of recommendation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm TAing one of his classes right now. He asked me to do stuff. I say yes. That's but he does stuff for me. A mutual relationship.
So I work with Dr. Tom Dazinski, who's a social psychologist here. And I ended up working with him because I actually was in a totally different field in psychology before. I was working at nonprofits. And I came in and I just thought his research sounded cool. He reminds people of death and then sees how attitudes and behaviors change. And so I emailed him after I got into the program. I was like, hey, are you accepting someone? We had a couple Skype calls. And he's like, yeah, you should join our lab. Yeah, he's hands off too. Really? Just surprised. But yeah, it's mostly, we meet every 2 weeks for lab meetings, where somebody will present something they're working on. Yeah, I mean, mostly I work with his postdocs. And I think that's really depending on the lab, right? Like I've heard some labs are very hierarchical, where like the mentor's on top and then you have the postdocs, which is people right out of their PhD. Then you have senior grad students, then you have lower level grad students. That was kind of how my lab was. But other people, I don't know, it's maybe smaller lab. They'll have direct communication with their mentor more often.
I work with Dr. Kisley, who teaches the biopsych class in psych here. I met him because I took a few of his classes in undergrad, and then I sent him a meeting that he really liked. He was like, I love you so much, you should come start working with her.
Sometimes it's that easy.
Yeah, sometimes it is. But yeah, so I reached out to him and that's how we connected. And he was my mentor first for the undergraduate honors program in the psych department. And then after that, when I applied to grad school, I got in here and just kept working with him. And he has been an amazing mentor. He's also very hands-off, like everyone else has been saying. He lets me kind of, I don't say do whatever I want, but like really take the lead on what kind of things I'm interested in and what I study. He's really helpful when I go to him with things I'm struggling with, and he's really good at talking through things. One thing I love about him is that he's really open-minded and like really open to learn new things. So he even took a class with me last year, which is really fun to like be able to learn together and talk about how we can use those skills we're learning in some of the projects we're working on. We meet kind of just whatever we need. So sometimes when I'm like work towards the end of my thesis or working on a paper, we'll meet maybe every week or every other week. But now that things are mostly wrapping up, it's just kind of, I don't know, we'll check in by email every few weeks and see if we need to talk about anything. And then we have, I don't know, 1 to 2 lab meetings with all the grad students this semester, just kind of more of a social thing than anything, just like kind of stay connected and keep that familial bond. And then one thing I like is at the end of every semester, he takes us all out for dinner or something to celebrate, just making it through another semester of grad school.
So if you were counting, 4 of our 7 panelists all met their mentors here at UCCS as an undergrad and just continued on. So keep that in mind when you're looking around at programs. Like some of those programs could be right here and you don't have to go too far. So questions from the audience. We have about 5 minutes. Any last minute questions, final thoughts? So where we're at. So again, if something comes up, you can reach out to any of them. I'm going to say they're more than happy to talk to you, answering on your behalf. But thank you all so much for coming. Please reach out with any questions that you have, and good luck on your journey here. Okay.
Thanks, guys.
And panelists, don't go anywhere. We have definitely and also present.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God.
So they delivered.
Did they re-deliver?
Okay. They delivered. So they delivered the 6 pizzas yesterday, and I was like, "This is the wrong date."
Like, that's not good.
So we had to warm them up and the whole thing, and then they showed up again. Hi, my name's Mary Jennifer. Nice to meet you.
So my major is in med lab science. I'm majoring in med lab sciences right now, and I'm a sophomore. So I'm wondering, like,
So yeah, as a sophomore, you already have some of those intro classes like covered. So looking for like prerequisites, just you have like this is a really great time to reach out. So then the other thing is from the mentor's perspective, they say, "Oh, you still have 2 more years here," so they can actually really train you up in there. Things like that. So that's a really good if you have questions on like anything like that, like I think we're talking with any of our peers can also share because they're familiar with what's going on in the or in the.
so I make sure everyone gets such.
Yes, those guys for the piano. Yeah. And they can kind of which different.
Yeah, because I definitely want to specialize something as a graduate, but all the options.
Some of them, yeah, and that's where the grad schools are really great, like just kind of like bounce ideas off them and learn to. But it's really and the possibilities. Yeah.
I just want to see kind of.
No, I'm sorry. It's exactly good. Yeah, so feel free to reach out to me. I can probably have
Or maybe is it your email? If not, I can write it down.
Yeah. Everything's really bad. I'm sorry.
You're fine. Mine's also kind of messy.
Okay. Good company then. Okay. That's JPOE.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, so was it alternate? Yeah. This is. I was there, they did too.
Oh. As long as like, funny that part was weird, I just thought about that. I was looking at that and I'm like, oh, I should not have writing there. Thank you. Okay. Well, thank you.